Welcome to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where people share timeless ideas. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and in every episode we dive into the philosophies, quotes, poems, and life lessons that shape how we live, think, and grow. No matter where you are in life, this show is here to remind you wisdom is everywhere, and it's always relatable most of the times.
Today's guest is someone who knows what it means to pause when everyone else is moving in the same direction. Toni Will is a professional sports executive, speaker, author, and creator of Empower. She serves as the general manager and governor of the Kalamazoo Wings, a men's professional hockey team leading in one of the most high-pressure, male-dominated industries in sports. Her guiding quote is from Mark Twain: whenever you feel you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. For Toni, that reflection has shaped her leadership, her reinventions, and even her decision to leave alcohol free, not because things were falling apart, but because she wanted more clarity, more presence, and more intentional success. She's a TEDx speaker, Ironman triathlete, podcast host of Women In, founder of Empower, and author of the upcoming book Rebellious Success. This conversation is about questioning default thinking, leading when you're often the only woman in the room, and redefining success on your own terms. Toni, welcome to the Relatable Wisdom podcast.
Thank you.
Whenever you find yourself in the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. When did that quote first become personal for you?
I think it was when I just decided to quit drinking. I remember reading that quote in a book that I was reading, and a lot of books will have like a quote at the top of the chapter, and that quote was one of them. And it really stood out to me, especially at that time in my life when I decided that alcohol was no longer fitting. And because it is in America, it's such a cultural norm to drink. And it is definitely the majority. And I felt empowered by that quote because I really did stop to think, why am I in the majority when it came to that thing in particular, my relationship with alcohol? So to me, and someone that's not afraid to what I call color outside the lines and have a little rebellion in me, it really spoke to me. And so it has stuck with me ever since. And I've leaned on it a lot when I'm working on other things where I'm not in the majority, which is basically my day to day and my day job.
Wow. Other than making the choice of going alcohol free, what other choices have you made in your life where you paused instead of following the majority and you had to say, oh no, this isn't what I want?
Yeah, I mean, and you read it in my bio, my job in and of itself, I'm in the minority as a woman and as a general manager of a men's professional hockey team. And so when I'm in those rooms, whether it be with fellow general managers or presidents, I'm the governor of the team as well, which I'm the only female governor. And that's like a board of directors, but we're called governors in professional sports. I'm very much in the minority anytime I'm in those rooms. And so I find myself in that space often. And it's very empowering because I've used that mindset to start to do work to lift other women up that want to aspire to achieve where I'm at. And so I create programs within the league I work in to allow women to learn and grow and network and have a seat at the table and help them get to their goals. And so it really has been empowering in my day job. And then certainly when I'm in these meetings, there are a lot of times where my way of thinking is different. And because I'm not connected to the sport per se, I'm not emotionally attached to it. And so because I'm not emotionally attached, like a lot of the men in the room are, I just think differently around it. So I'm in the minority when it comes to the way of thinking and business decisions and how to handle difficult situations. Oftentimes I just think differently based on my gender.
I'm curious, what's it like being the only woman in certain rooms?
At first I didn't really notice because I never found myself in that position before. And it wasn't until I started to feel some of those small microaggressions. There's just these little things where there's language used where it's assuming that they're all men at the table. They'll start a
Yeah.
meeting and they'll open it with like, gentlemen, welcome to the meeting. Well, I'm like, no, like I'm here
Ladies
too.
and gentlemen.
Yeah. So it's little things like that where you're like, hello. So I started to stand up more and say things as and I don't think they're intentional, most part. There are times where I had one gentleman in the middle of a meeting tell me that I lacked common sense.
Ooh.
And yeah, it was, so what I wrote down, I wrote it in a Post-it note. I didn't say it out loud because I'm professional, but I wrote on a Post-it note, I don't lack common sense. What I lack is a penis. So I handle it professionally, and I really wanted to say that, but yeah, there are times where it's been offensive, and I've just had to stand up for myself. And I have a lot of allies too. I mean, I have a lot of men around those tables that are great friends and supporters, but I don't think sometimes people step back and think about who are the important women in my life, and would I want them feeling the same way Toni feels right now?
I'm curious. and I'm curious, what was the context behind that statement? Uh, you lack common sense.
Yeah, the context behind that was it was a discussion with the board around some teams in the league that were not meeting the requirements of their membership. And because they weren't paying certain vendors, and they were just not running their hockey business to the standards that the league mandates. And they were concerned that if both teams were voted out or voted to not be a part of the membership any longer, that it would be a public relations, it'd look bad against the league in a public relations space. And I disagreed with that. I said, actually, I think any PR, whether it's good or bad, is good PR, and I think it'll do well for the league. I don't think we would be held back in any way, shape, or form, because it wasn't about the league doing something wrong. It was about the teams and the owner of those teams. And that's when he said I lacked common sense.
Ooh, wow. I'm curious. I'm always curious. Isn't that why I have a podcast? I probably should be started with I'm curious, because it goes without saying. What barriers did you have to overcome internally before you could overcome them externally?
Yeah, what barriers? I think there's a lot. There's barriers that we put in our own mind, like limiting beliefs, and then there's just the reality of the barriers that are in the day to day. I think some of the barriers I put in my own way are just, not having, at times, I don't feel this way now. I would say before I quit drinking, not having the confidence to go for the things I really wanted when it related to either personally or professionally. I worked really hard to get a seat on the executive committee of the Board of Governors. And that really wasn't until I quit drinking that I felt that I had enough confidence to be the first woman ever in the history of the league to do that. And so a lot of the things were just where I just got in my own way. And once I stopped doing the things that made me feel small, I started to get big. The other barriers, the ones I can't control, are the way people act or think or look at me because of whatever reason, whether it be my gender or the way I think or the way I speak. That's really on them and not me. So it's really just my mindset around how I choose to handle these situations. And I really live in a place of abundance and not scarcity, and really focus on the positive, because I've made a lot of positive change, whether it be within the league for women or within my community as well. So there's way more positives than negatives, but there are always be barriers when I'm in a men's professional sport.
How do you lead with authority without losing your authenticity?
Yeah, being authentic is something that's really important to me. So how I lead is when I sit down with my employees, I do one-on-ones with them every month. And one of the things we're doing this year is we're 10Xing. And essentially what that means is it's not just 10Xing revenue, but 10Xing our lives, because I want the whole person to be at work and feel supported and know what their goals are and how we can achieve these things together. Because we're building a brand new hockey arena here in Kalamazoo. So we're about ready to go through this huge growth. In order to do that, to be a good leader, I'm someone that walks alongside them and I mentor them. I teach them. I give them the tools and the support in order to help them grow into the person, both personally and professionally, they want to be. And so that's the type of leader I am. And I talk about it in my TEDx, but one of my leadership pillars is macromanage. And that's really important because nobody likes to be micromanaged. And so when I hire people on my staff, the things I say to them, and one of the most important things I say on a nearly a daily basis is, I trust you. And I really mean that, because I want them to grow into their own confidence and their own career. And I'm there to guide them, but I'm not there to tell them what to do.
Well, I'm there to guide them, but I'm not there to tell them what to do. Well, um, one of the things I noticed about your career is you started in banking, you moved into economic development, you then now you're doing professional sports. How do you recognize a detour that's actually an opportunity?
Yeah, it was, my career is something that's been interesting, because I didn't set out when I graduated from college and say, boy, I'm going to end up in pro sports. I did not think that was going to happen. I actually spent, like you mentioned, I spent the first half of my career. I've been working 25 years. And the first 13 years I spent in banking. And I really thought that's kind of where I would be and continue to climb up that corporate ladder. But there's something about me that I get bored and I get antsy, and I'm always seeking a new challenge. And so when there were opportunities like economic development that came out, that came to me, I thought, why not? Because I believe in myself, and I thought, I can learn how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I can learn. And that is really how those two job changes morphed over the next 12 years. I did the chamber work, which was in economic development, for 2 years, and I left because it was a very toxic work environment. And then I found my way into pro sports completely on accident. But it really boiled down to this belief that I could learn how to do whatever it is that was put in front of me, and I just have to go find the experts to help teach me. And that's really what's been something that's been critical throughout anything I've accomplished that's on my bio, is that I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, but I found people that could help teach me, and I am curious and I was willing to learn.
Well, you found people because the thing is, a lot of times, right? You go to school, you come out of college, you're in the bank, you're like, okay, how do I advance to the next big thing? Probably, I'm working as a cashier in a bank. I should become a branch manager, and then from branch manager, managing director, and then all the next things, which is great. You're advancing in the career, and probably you do that for 20 years, and you're like, oh wow, I'm part of board of directors. I don't know how that works in the banking industry. And you're like, okay, well, if I leave this now, I spend this years trying to climb the ranks. Am I going to start from scratch? And in your case, because the reason why I had to ask you is, in your case, every detour was an opportunity. And
let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join. Or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
how do you tell? Or is it something you just take a leap and what happens?
Yeah, I don't know that there was one tell for me. I think part of it was my youth and this brazen fearlessness that I have in my personality at times, where I'm like, I can learn how to do this. I can tell you now, at nearly 48 years old, I would look at it a little differently, because I have aged, I have more wisdom. There's more at stake. And to your point, I don't know if I want to start over, to start from scratch.
Yeah.
It is a lot. It is a lot of work. And when I thought about when I came into my hockey career 11 years ago, I think back on those first few years, and I'm like, shake my head and think, how did I do it? Because it was a lot of work. And so I do look at it differently now as I age. But I think that's the gift of hindsight and the gift of a growth mindset, to say, man, I got out of those parts of my life what I was supposed to. I followed my gut. I call it following the breadcrumbs. And I made the right decisions at the time. I didn't let fear hold me back. And you know what? It worked out the way it was supposed to. So I don't know, Wisdom, if it was seeing the opportunity or just being naive enough to say, why not?
I don't know if it was seeing the opportunity or just being naive enough. to say why not. I guess we have that Tony to thank for making you who you are now.
Exactly. That's kind of I get asked about that. The career changes quite a bit, and I get to reflect on it a lot. And that's the best explanation I can give for it. Naivety sometimes is a gift.
Yeah, people always say, "Oh well," in hindsight, when I look at it, it was probably the best decision I made. And for me, I'm always curious, not about the hindsight conclusion you made, I'm not saying that that's not important. That's important, but I'm like, in the moment, in the heat of the moment, what was the foresight reason you had? Like, okay, if I move to this career, if I move to this thing, this is why. We always. I feel like sometimes we make choices and then find reasons to justify the choices, but either way, we come up with reasons.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, it is about the challenge. And that was where I had enough foresight to say, this might be this job, like in pro sports, for instance, this might be hard. Because
Yeah.
I don't have a background in this. I'm born and raised in Kalamazoo, so I understand the pro sports team, but I knew it would be a challenge. And I love a good challenge. And so that's where that foresight comes in.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I love a challenge. I do love a challenge. Earlier on at the beginning of the episode, we talked about, as part of the intro, I talked about you choosing to live alcohol free. And your case is kind of peculiar because you chose to live alcohol free, not because things were falling apart, but because you wanted more. And what was that? What was that? What was more?
Yeah, the great question. So the more for me was I knew there was something left in me in terms of where I was going next. And because I didn't quite know how to put my finger on it. And one of the things I've always wanted to do was own my own business, but I've always been
Okay.
held back by fear. And so this is where I would play small. And so I thought, once I kind of started to remove alcohol, because of shame, I didn't really talk about it first. And then I was like, no, I'm going to talk about it more and I'm going to help other people. And then I ended up getting a coaching certification and starting my own business. And that was successful right out of the gate. And I've been coaching people all over the world to help them reduce or remove substances. And I've been able to do this in tandem with my full-time job. And that then led to expanding my coaching business to professional development, which then led to a podcast, which then led to a conference that I created, and then my book that's coming out in August. And so I love a challenge, and I didn't know how to do any of those things, but because I quit drinking, I gave myself back the gift of time and freedom to do
Oh.
these other things that I wanted to accomplish. And here I am 5.5 years later, making all those dreams come true.
Oh. I'm curious, how did that decision challenge cultural norms, especially in sports and business environments?
Oh yeah, it definitely. I mean, alcohol is everywhere in sports, as you know. Um,
Yeah.
I decided this is where that Mark Twain quote comes back. If you find yourself in the majority, pause and reflect. And so I use that as fuel to say, I choose not to drink. And I also decided to look at this like maybe I used to fear that people wouldn't respect me if I didn't drink. But what if they respected me more if I chose not to drink?
Wow.
And so that's what I chose to believe. It was my beliefs. And that's what helped me decide that I was just going to be a non-drinker.
What surprised you the most about living alcohol free?
Oh my gosh. There's so many surprises. I
Let's take
love
it
that.
one at a time.
Yeah, I love that it's that I love talking about it. I really do. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about because it is such a gift that someone can give to themselves, but it's really hard. It was not easy for me to quit. And so I don't want to oversimplify it, but it aligned me with my core values, and I didn't know how that would feel to live in alignment, and that is really powerful, and it makes me feel like I'm unstoppable.
Oh. Yeah, it kind of makes sense now because you know it's one of those things that's it felt hard, difficult, but you were able to break free from alcohol, and now when other things are less less difficult, like the reminder that, oh yeah, I could do it.
Exactly. I'm capable because I have what I call receipts. I've done so many things, difficult things, alcohol free, that it just proves my grit and my resilience. And I don't need to numb anything in my life to cope with the challenges that is living life.
Well, your book, which you talked about, while responding to one of the questions I asked, you said your upcoming book is titled Rebellious Success. That's that's a peculiar choice of name. What makes success rebellious?
Yeah, so this book is interesting because it's part memoir, part self-help, and part like business leadership. And first off, that's rebellious in and of itself to me.
Sooner or later in the future, we'll turn that into a genre of its own. So it will no longer be rebellious. It will become the norm.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So the whole mission behind this book is for people to not feel like they have to follow the traditional path to success, that they can create their own journey, whatever road they want to take, and it's going to have ups and downs, and it's not going to be Instagram pretty, but there's many different ways to be successful. And so my book tells stories about my life, the not so pretty sides, the hard stuff, and how I came out the other side. And that's what the reader's going to get, the how to. And that was really important to me. So readers could walk away with things to say, I want to do what she's doing, and here's how I did it. So that's really where the rebellious part came in, because that very much speaks to my personality. And there's a lot of people out there that want to let that inner rebel out and unapologetically. And that's really the core theme.
Wow. I'm curious, 10 years ago, how did you define success compared to this moment?
Yeah, 10 years ago, I was a year into my new job in hockey.
Okay.
So it was a very different time. It was very hectic and not as certain. I definitely didn't understand. I thought I understood who I was, but oh boy, I didn't. And if I would have known like what was in front of me, I mean, this 10 years, and I haven't been asked this question before, so it's very thoughtful.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
It really is. I like reflecting back on it. Man, I've changed a lot in 10 years. A lot. And I'm really proud of it, but I put myself through the ringer for the first half of those 10 years. The other half's been awesome.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Has your understanding of success over the years, and including the fact that you read the book on success, which meant you had to do a lot of thinking, reflecting, and research, amongst many other things, has it gotten clearer? Or do you think it's pretty much the same?
No, it's gotten a lot clearer. That's for sure.
Okay.
It has, and it's because I understand myself better, and that's part of the cool thing about aging. I was talking to a friend about this today, that as I get closer to another birthday, there's just so much gratitude in it because I've lived more life. I've been through more highs and lows, and my definition of success has become more clear. It's not as muddied, and it's much more, again, aligned with my core values, and that's really important to me.
Yeah, I mean, you've understood yourself better over the years, and I think probably you've tried more things, and you've seen what worked and what didn't work. So you have more data points over the years. That's only happens if you live life. If you do not live life, age doesn't really do anything.
Right, exactly. And that's why, one of the things that people are so afraid of, especially when I'm coaching clients, is they're afraid of failure. And I'm like, why? This failure, that's where you learn. And I think it's just such BS. Failure is such a gift. Every time something doesn't go my way or the way I think it should go, I'm like, there's a lesson in this. Those lows have really helped me become a better version of myself and help continue to redefine what success means. And I'm sure if you and I were to talk 10 years from now, I would say I'd have an even clearer picture.
Yeah, in my head, I'm guessing what the book would be called if we were to write a book on success then.
Yeah, I got to get this one out first.
That would be interesting. I could guess, but I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
Yeah. Well, this conversation has been, lovely, and it seemed so short, even though we've been talking for about 20 to 30 minutes. I don't know what happened, but time just seems to be running so fast.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, very great questions, and excited for your podcast. I love the name of it, and I hope I'm helping people as they listen to it.
Of course, you're helping me, so that's a validator point, and you're touching the life. I want us to do something different, right? I do have a lot of questions and traditional questions I've been asking, but I just want us to play a game. I'm going to do what kids in kindergarten do, and that is they fill in the gap, right? So I would make a statement, you complete it. You ready?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Leadership is dash.
Leadership is essential.
Clarity feels like dash.
Clarity feels like peace of mind.
The majority is dangerous when dash.
Majority is dangerous when not aligned with who you are.
Sobriety taught me dash.
Sobriety taught me how to be unstoppable.
Rebellious success means dash.
Rebellious success. This is a good one.
This one should be easy.
Rebellious success means I've achieved a dream that I've set for myself.
Rebellious success means I have achieved a dream that I've set for myself. So rebellious success itself doesn't mean that you try to succeed in something that challenges anything. It just means that you achieve something that you set for yourself, even though it appears to be the norm.
I think for me, it is really rebellious and to set a goal that you think you're never going to achieve and you do it. You just might not do it the way you thought or talking about the things you would.
Yeah. You know why I had to make that statement? It's because I don't know if you've noticed, but there are people who just rebel for the sake of rebelling. So they don't have what they stand for. I give an example. If you say go right, they'll go left.
Yep.
And if tomorrow you decide to say, okay, well, let's go left, they'll go right. As long as whatever they are doing challenges what it's the norm or the authority or the rule, that's what they do. They don't just have a reason. There's no need to have a reason. Their goal is I will just rebel and whatever I need to do to rebel. So that's why I had to clarify that sometimes, what you want to do might be the norms and might be what everybody's doing. But because some people are like, oh, I want to chase this thing, but I want to write a book, but everybody else is writing a book. I feel like I shouldn't write a book. I want to start a podcast. Everybody else has a podcast. Everybody and their dad and their mom has a podcast. I don't think I should do a podcast anymore. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Do you want to start a podcast or not? Right? If you want, then do it.
It's so true. And you're absolutely right. And I can relate to what you're saying because I can be like that sometimes. And a lot of times I find that to be a saboteur when we just go against, if someone says go right and we go left, well, why would I want to do that? What am I trying to prove?
Yeah. For the sake of going against.
Right.
Wow.
There are times when it's useful and there are times when it's a sabotage.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the unexamined life is not worth living. And man or woman, ladies or gentlemen, know thyself.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. Okay, the last one I have is it's easy. If you don't pause, you risk dash. I'll say it again. If you don't pause, you risk dash.
Yeah, if you don't pause, you risk I'm trying to find the right word.
I do have an answer.
Yeah, react. You risk reacting instead of responding.
Okay, wow. When I asked the question, the first thought that came to myself was if you don't pause, you risk losing yourself more. Okay. You risk reacting. That's and even losing yourself and reacting. Yeah, like don't lose your shit. How do they say it? So yeah. Well, I think we're aligned at this point. We're thinking.
We are. You're absolutely right because if I don't pause and I will sometimes react instead of respond, you're absolutely right. I could lose myself in reacting.
Yeah. I still don't know why the English people call it losing your shit. But who am I? Who am I? Okay. Yeah. For listeners who want to explore your 6 leadership pillars. And I know we didn't get to talk about that because there's a lot of questions I had. And then they also want to attend your Empower 2026 and listen to the podcast Women in that ... or learn more about the Rebellious Success, which you said will be coming out in August. Where can they go?
Yeah, ToniWill.com, ToniWill.com. Everything is on there that you just mentioned. And yeah, I would love for people to check everything out that I'm working on.
Wow. I will put a link in the description so the listeners can click and go to the site. Thank you so much, Toni. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And
You as
just
well.
you helping me make sense of your quotes.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.